Hi, welcome to another episode of ABACAST. I'm delighted to welcome a kindred spirit today, having been a tax partner for 12 years myself. Grahame Jackson, tax expert. Welcome to ABACAST.
Thank you very much for
I hope
having
you
me.
enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Tax, the nirvana of financial services practice, would you say? I mean, for people like us?
I think nirvana is a strong word, isn't it? But I think it touches everything, and every business and every human that has income is involved with tax. It's absolutely all pervasive, and yet ignored because it's tricky.
Viewed as a necessary evil by most
I think a lot of the
people.
time, yeah, it's something. Oh God, why do I have to deal with this? And this is getting in the way of me doing business.
Yeah.
But the price that you pay if you get that wrong is very high. So I think it's very important. I mean, I think so. I first came to Gib 25 years ago. I think that we have a very much more complex tax landscape than we did 25 years ago. I think that I saw your shoulders drop there for a second. But I think that our profession as tax advisors is probably much better skilled than it was 25 years ago because of that. There was a lot less. I didn't deal with you then, so I don't know. But there's a lot less of this. Oh, I'll just go and get somebody in the UK and they can tell us. I think much more is being done in Gib. We're stronger than we were 25 years ago.
Yeah. Perhaps before we get into all of that, which we no doubt will in some more detail, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up here.
So
Clearly you're not from here. But
clearly, that's nice. So I was born in Liverpool in 1971.
Does that make you a red or a blue?
Well, you see, neither. The answer to that is neither. I actually support Stoke, but that's a family reason. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s in Liverpool. I'm firmly Generation X, and sort of lived through the back end of Labour government in the 70s, winter discontent, Thatcher, we mentioned before we started filming. Then ran the family printing business for 10 years, came out here in 2002. Because I could move here. I didn't need to learn a foreign language to get a job. And then I sort of didn't get any work for 3 months. In fact, there's still an estate agent I'm waiting for the rejection letter from for 3 months. And then I got a job with Lion Group, and my official title was probationary trainee junior company administrator.
Very good.
And I earned a year, which was a lot less than I'd been earning in England. But I stuck it, and just they kept promoting me, and I kept studying and kept promoting me, and now I'm a partner with the firm. So
Fantastic.
I've gone from there to there, and it's Gib has given me wonderful opportunities that I don't think I would have had in England as a late qualifier as a lawyer, because I wasn't a lawyer when I arrived.
Right.
I was a printer.
Yeah.
I had no legal qualifications. So, I don't think that would have been possible anywhere else, to be honest.
Yeah. Our trajectories are not dissimilar. I actually started out at Lion Group myself.
Oh, wow. A brilliant training ground.
In 1982, if I'm not mistaken. 84.
Oh, wow.
84. And then moved in a different direction, joined a bank and stuff. So that was my own way. But something must have made you stay, other than just the success in your career.
Why I stayed because, well, I mean, there's path dependence, right? So I was on the road, and that was it. I was on the road, but I never really. I went back for 2 years in the middle for family reasons, and I never really shook it. Gibraltar gets inside you, and it can infuriate you, but it's still a thing that you love if you love it. If you don't love it, then you never make it work.
It's the Marmite thing.
Yeah, so it's the Marmite thing. But basically, if you get to 3 years, you're never going to leave in your heart.
Right.
You might go away again, but you'll always be yearning to come back. I think that's true.
That's an interesting perspective.
And when people say, if I'm moaning about having a bad day or something like that, people would say, why are you, basically, why don't you go back to England if that's your attitude? Which I have had shouted at me in the street once.
No doubt.
But the answer to that is, to use an analogy, which is, I know exactly what's wrong with my mother, right? But I love her with all of my heart.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the you accept Gib as it is rather than as a dream of a place, then it's wonderful, but you can't expect it to be something it isn't.
Correct. Yeah, I agree entirely with that. I think that's a very sensible perspective. And Gibraltar does offer us things, not least our careers, but also other things as well that are well recognised by most people.
I mean, where else am I going to have a 7.5 minute commute to do the job that I do, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's not going to be there.
Yeah.
I get a free bus to town every day. It takes about 10 minutes.
Yes.
I walk to work. People say hello to me.
Yes.
It's not awful.
It's not great. Yes, you've already spoken a little bit about the way you kind of moved on from being a printer to being in a fiduciary type environment. But there's still a jump from the fiduciary world into tax and specialization in that. Ought we to be having this conversation? Ought we to be regarding you as that tax expert that you've become renowned to be?
Renowned's a good word. I like that word. So basically, it was just about where was I deployed in the firm. Once I made the step over to being a paralegal, I worked with James Lassery in the funds team, who I'm sure you're aware of. Well, the funds team was me and him.
Oh, right. Okay.
Then when I went back and I think for family reasons and came back, I was just put in Chris White's team, probably because we're both from Liverpool.
Right.
And then that meant then tax is the thing that you do. And then when Chris retired, it was like everybody looked at me and went, "So what's the tax thing then?"
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, I better learn some things." Yeah. But then when I started to study, I mean, the study, I think the training after being qualified as a lawyer is the key to how I've managed to do what I've done. It's once I got the advanced diploma in international tax, that then gave me confidence to sell my services as a tax advisor. That probably I think the firm and Gib needs is to be able to be more than a Gibraltar tax advisor. Gibraltar tax advisors are great and they're really important, but on an international stage, you don't want to be the guy at the end of the call that says there's no tax in Gib. You want to be the guy that's building and designing the transaction rather than the guy that's brought in to just put the cherry on the top.
Yeah, I mean, my memory clearly of where we were when you arrived is a little fuzzy. Were you around for the tax-exempt company?
Yes, I caught the end of the tax-exempt company. So the tax-exempt company was abolished in 2010. The final ones went when the new ITA came in. So I did all the exempt applications,
right,
paying the £250 and all that. And I think, that sort of, the easiness of that meant that our muscles got weak because we didn't need to think. Because it was just, it's exempt, as long as it doesn't trade in Gib. That was, whilst it was a great tool, an easy thing to market, I think it made us as a profession maybe weaker than we could have been.
Well, there were two things about it. One was, looking back now, how incredibly easy it was to just be a professional in the area in those days. But looking forward to where we are today, and the rather more nuanced approach that we now have to take, it almost seems child's play. It almost seems as if we were living in this kind of world of denial that inevitably would catch up with us, and we were kind of forced into a different pace of doing these things. And I do remember that there was a lot of moaning and groaning and pain and suffering and kind of being forecast for the whole of our industry at the time, and then subsequently how well we'd managed it. But in reality, was the transition really that hard?
So I've lived through the death of the profession about 5 times since I've been in it, and I'm still here. Yeah. So I think what it is that people get used to the way things are, and any change is regarded as the end. It's not, because the only thing that's the end of the world is the end of the world, right? Yeah. So, okay, the exempt company's gone. Let's think about it. Let's sit down with our brains. And I remember I wasn't involved in it, but I remember seeing people thinking about this and trying to work out, okay, we're going to go back to the base. Nobody had thought about what was in the Income Tax Act for about 20 years. It literally was not on the radar. The only people who cared about the ITA 1952 Income Tax Act then were the people who were doing accounts for shops and stuff like that. So the international part of the profession just wasn't even thinking about it. And, we achieved, with our base system, a smooth transition and protected the profession, because we went back and looked at the law, and that's really important. We should always go back and look at what the law says, because you might read it and go, oh my God, everything I thought about that's wrong if I just look at it like that. Or there'll be that, subparagraph 8 that you've never read, that you'll suddenly think, oh, yes, that makes sense, and now I understand it. So I think that we've got a robust legislative framework. We just need to understand it. I mean, if you think about when CRS came in, the Common Reporting Standard, that's the bank exchange of information, and trusts and companies and all that gets sucked into it. That again was this. It's over.
Yes,
it's absolutely over. Right? There'll be a sucking sound as the money leaves Gibraltar. You're like, no, because everybody's doing it. Yeah. If you sell your product to people it works for, it doesn't matter that there's going to be a report. What matters is if you're selling it to people it doesn't work for. I think what we've done is we've moved, like our competitor jurisdictions, we've moved to fewer clients worth more, I think. Because we've actually been forced into thinking about, is this, I'm not selling a product anymore, I'm selling advice. Yeah. Whereas before, everybody who walked through the door got an exempt company or a trust.
Yeah, but I do think as well that that's potentially also part of the perspective from which you're looking at it. So you're looking at it very much from the advisory perspective. A business like ours is more of a, I wouldn't say, I don't think it's a product, but it's that service provision standpoint is different to the advisory standpoint. Having been in both positions, I think inevitably you're going to come to perhaps slightly different conclusions about where you're going to go and how far you can go. What would you say, I think, in terms of before we get bogged down in too much on
taxi stuff. They could just turn the camera off and we'll just carry on.
Yes. Fertile stuff. We spoke just before we came on about the difference between not just living in England or living in the UK, but the different perspectives, the differences in lifestyle. Do you want to make any observations about that?
I think that one of the big drivers of the way Gibraltar culture works is the size. So, because everything is so easily accessible, you will think, right, I can go to the beach now, or I can pop to Morrison's, or I can do this. And also because in some ways things take longer, and we all understand that you can't go to the doctor at 8 o'clock at night. So we're more tolerant of, you can go, like you can say to a member of staff, okay, I understand you've got this to do, go and do it. The Gibraltar office, we all know it closes at whatever time it closes at. So I understand you've got to go there. It won't work on the telephone. I mean, I'm not picking Gibraltar as just using that as a name that we all know. But we're more tolerant of that than you would be in England. In England, you'd be like, well, why can't you do this after you've finished? Because I can't, is the answer here. I think that's very different. It took some time to get used to. I think the whole and I'm not saying it should be abolished, but the concept of summer hours came as a terrible shock for me when I first moved here. And I remember walking down at like 3:30 in the afternoon to go and get my electricity connected when I just moved into my first apartment, only to find it was closed. And I was like, well, I've got no electricity. What do I do?
Yes.
And it was all okay, right? It was fine. And obviously I went the next day and it was all sorted out and that was fine. But that first confrontation that you have with the difference in work culture does come as a shock to people who come out here. And a lot of people make the mistake of telling people what they should do instead of saying, well, that's different and I've moved to this country and I should accept that, because it's not for me to tell people who've been here for 300 years what they should do. I think that there's a big error there that people make when they move here, of not understanding. I'm the person coming in from the outside. It's not the other way around.
Yes.
But it doesn't make it any less of a shock.
Yes, and even having been here your whole life, as I have, sometimes it's difficult to accommodate that kind of specific aspect.
But then on top of it, just like as I said earlier about, I know what's wrong with my mother and I love her to bits. Like, it's a marvellous place. People are very friendly. I couldn't possibly criticise the way that I've been welcomed and supported. When I very first moved here, I had an issue with a neighbour. And the way that the place put its arms around us and looked after us was amazing. I mean, really, really unbelievable, the support that we got. So I can't fault it. It just has wrinkles.
Yes.
Like we all do.
Yes. What do you think of again, I suppose it's with something like taxation, or the product that is taxed, in the sense that we try to sell it or advise on it at least. To what extent is it possible to look to the future? Are we dealing with something that is not... Can one have a vision about the future of a jurisdiction in terms of its taxation system? Is that...
I think... I think what we've got going on at the moment is actually quite valuable, because we now have a minister that's responsible for taxation who... You can criticise what he has or hasn't done, but you can't fault the fact that he is engaged, right? And I don't think in my career we've ever had a minister as engaged as this with taxation, apart from the actual drafting of the ITA 2010. Nigel wrote a book about tax, so he's got a base, he's got a solid base of expertise. I think that's very useful for us. I think that what we need to do as a jurisdiction is we need to understand our position in the world more. We need to look outside. It's better than it was, but we need to keep doing that. We need to keep thinking about what it is that makes us the way we are, and how we shouldn't just change things to keep the international community happy, because they say we should defend our position robustly, but also not close our eyes to the fact that we interact with other jurisdictions. So I think we're arriving at a good position, but I don't want us to swing too far towards giving everything away to the OECD because they tell us we should. But I also don't want us to close our eyes to the fact that if you get things wrong, they can go wrong. So we need somewhere in the middle. I think if you're asking me about the whole idea of finance centres, whatever label we want to give jurisdictions like ours, I think that there is still life in them. They haven't been shut down. I think that Pillar 2, which is the global minimum tax, which is the big OECD project at the minute, has created challenges, but that's only at the very top end of the market. So there's still a lot of space to do work with entities that turn over less than 750 million euros a year. And even with Pillar 2, there's still advice to be given and things that can be done within the framework. So I think it continues to evolve. Yeah. We don't know where it's going to go. We didn't know in 2002 that we'd end up here. Yeah. And we've done really well. We've met all the challenges. Yeah. We've not given in. We've kept going. Gibraltarians don't give in. Yes.
Harmonisation is a very loaded word, especially in this context. But to the extent that all the kind of jurisdictions that we'll be talking about have harmonised in terms of compliance, regulation, AML, standards and all of that. And indeed, there's almost a kind of machismo about this now, where I'm whiter than you are, I'm better at this stuff.
Yeah, there is a bit of that, isn't there? I mean, I don't know the political reasoning behind, say, why we've got a publicly accessible UBO register and Luxembourg doesn't, right? I'm sure there is good reason for it. Though I think we need to avoid that trap of instead of we were all competing, like people were, jurisdictions were competing 50 years ago about how secret they were, and now they're competing about how transparent they are.
Exactly, yes.
And we need to really try and keep cool heads and not fall into that, you know.
Yes.
I think our ministers, all ministers in all jurisdictions, so I'm not naming anybody specifically, need to be willing to have mildly uncomfortable conversations in the OECD meetings.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, our expression of sovereignty, and I've written papers about this, our tax system and our tax compliance system is an expression of our sovereignty, and that is ours. Now, we can agree to help, and we can agree to be good neighbours, and I'm not using that specifically with Spain, but with everybody in the world. But at the end of the day, it's our choice, and we should not allow ourselves to be railroaded by countries that frankly can't keep their citizens under control and stop them doing avoidance. So I think we need to be cooperative, but defend ourselves as well.
Yes. To the average outsider, though, and by that I mean clients, potential clients, that kind of harmonization of compliance / AML rules would tend to blur, I guess, the distinctiveness of each location. So do you think we have a USP? I mean, is there something that's unique, not necessarily about our tax system, but just generally about GIB, that it isn't, well, we are strategically located at, I mean, that's pretty...
You know, the mantra that's at the start of every piece of advertising,
If you ignore all of those...
Gibraltar was granted in perpetuity in 1714, you know, all that,
All that. You put all that to one side. Is there a genuine USP for Gibraltar in a field that's becoming increasingly, well, I was going to say increasingly less diffuse, but I don't want to have a double negative in there. Do you know what I mean? That where that harmonisation, that sense of, well, they're all pretty much the same. You may as well be in the BVI as you would be in Gibraltar. Well, okay, what's distinctive about us?
So I think one of the things that's important in that calculation is, what were the differences before? Because everybody's pretty much moved at the same rate. So you've got economic substance rules in BVI, you've got economic substance rules in Isle of Man, you've got economic substance rules in Jersey, Guernsey, Cayman, wherever. Now, we've got our own differences there because we've got taxation on royalties and interest, which the ESR is designed to stop. So everybody's moving as a herd because the EU makes it that way. So if we were different before, and we did all those things, are we still different now, is the question. I think what we need to understand is when people do the analysis of where they're going to move their companies, or where they're going to put their companies, where they're going to put their subsidiaries, where they're going to put their partnership or whatever in a big structure, they just have a chart, right, that's got a list of names down one side and tax rate. Is there capital gains tax? Is there so-and-so? Is there so-and-so? They don't care where you're located. Do you tick all the boxes? How much does it cost?
Yes.
Right? And then it's down to the people. Who do they deal with? Right? So our USP is how good we are. It's not that we've got a British flag or an independent flag, or that we have accrued and derived as our base, or a 0% or whatever, though that can help in some cases. But ultimately, our USP is how good are we as individuals and as a group, and are we better than the other professionals? Now, I know, and I'm not going to say, which jurisdictions I like to deal with, because I know that I ring up and I get a person who knows what they're talking about, a person who gives me confidence, makes me feel like it's going to be okay. And if we can do that, and if we can achieve excellence in our training, then we will be better than most of our competitors. Because a lot of them are still stuck in it's an exempt company at 0%. Because if you're in the BVI, what's your tax question? What do you ever need to think about?
Yes.
So, I mean, I remember way back when I first started, I didn't know what a permanent establishment was. Now, it's a critical concept, right? And I was supposed to be the tax advisor, and I didn't know what a PE was. And people kept saying this word. I was like, oh God, I don't know what this is. I had to go and look it up, and I was like, oh, that's really important, right? And then when I studied, all of those concepts just fell into place. Because if you're dealing with our tax system, why would you ever need to know that, right?
Yeah.
You end up saying, oh, well, it's a bit like a Part 12, which it is and it isn't at the same time, right? So I think if we train and if we write, and writing is really important for me, if we write, because writing in a sense is thinking, right? So if we encourage our professionals, right across the legal profession, to study extra, don't think that just because you qualified as a lawyer, that's it, you're done, right? You should go and do another course, go and specialise, go and bring knowledge to our country that we don't already have. And then we will get stronger as a jurisdiction because we'll be known as the place where you get good advice and competent people.
Expertise, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think homework for our audience, look up what permanent establishment is for next time, get it and bring back your reviews.
Yeah. In the comments.
Yes.
Definitions of PE.
So maybe it's time to round up. Let's look at the future for Gibraltar. In our exchanges before we did this, we referred to the treaty, and I'm not looking at it now from the obvious perspective of taxation, because you've rightly said that there isn't that much in it that needs discussing. But I think it's still worth our while on the verge of this kind of fairly momentous point in our history to look forward to it and say, well, how do you think this is going to affect living here, working here, dealing with other countries as in the new environment that we'll find ourselves in?
So you're right. I don't think it's going to make any difference to the tax effectively. I think it's going to, a big part of me just wants to say it's not going to make that much difference, because it doesn't fix the 90 and 180 days question, right? So even though you're not going to be recorded, I understand that. But still, as an advisor, I can't ever say to anybody, "I'll be okay. Go play golf every day, be fine," because that's not the law, right? I think that it will remove the friction, so there'll be more of everything. There'll be more. I think it will have an impact on business. It will be easier to get staff. I think, but socially, I don't think anybody knows what it's going to do. I think that socially, it's a bit of a pivot point for Gib. Does it mean our young people will go and live over the border where they can afford to live, and then there'll be some sort of osmosis? I mean, that's one of the fears, right? That a vocal minority have talked about, and so does it mean that? I think HM Government of Gibraltar will have to work hard to keep its people here, because the economics will just drive them in one way or another. But then also, because it doesn't fix the 90 and 180 days, they can't go and live there. So there's going to be some sort of under the radar, possibly. I don't know. I think it's just going to be complex, and we can't know how it's going to play out where we are today. This is essentially an experiment. Gibraltar has been entirely defined by the existence of the border, in a sense. To remove that, that's going to do things to the Gibraltar psychology.
Shift. Yes, paradigm shift, absolutely.
So psychologically, yes, but then also probably not as much effect immediately as people imagine. Because I think there's some sort of idea that it's like a universal panacea, and children will be happy and will frolic in the daisies and it'll be brilliant. I don't think it's going to be. I think we're not going to know the effect of this for 50 years.
All right.
I really don't think that.
Gosh.
And that's not to say it isn't the right thing to do, but just like
the law of unintended consequences.
Things happen, right? We don't know. And the government needs to be, and not just this government, all governments in the future need to be conscious of what's happening, because the risk of the loss of the Gibraltarian, I mean, that's the joke, isn't it? The thing about Monaco is there's no Monegasques there because they've all moved out. That risk should be averted. I mean, it should be a major social aim, is to keep the Gibraltarians in, obviously not by locking them in, but keep them in Gibraltar.
That was already tried.
As best, they tried that as best we can, because that guarantees the social fabric of our society. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Let's end up with a question about not just where we go as a jurisdiction in the future, but do you think we can keep on winning? We, as you said already, we've done pretty well so far. We've negotiated hurdles that we thought were beyond us, but somehow we've survived in it. Are we going to carry on winning business? Are we going to carry on winning as a jurisdiction?
I think, yes, we are. So, I mean, it's a terrible cliche, isn't it, to say that Gibraltar punches above its weight? Well, it's a cliche because it's true. Right. We do. We go out and compete against jurisdictions with 2, 3, 4 times as many people, which are much closer to England and therefore suck out professionals to go and live there in a way that they don't come here. So a lot of our talent's homegrown. We have major accountancy firms, but we don't have a major law firm having a site here. No, DWS did a long time ago, right? Yeah. I think we are doing it, and we're doing it well, and we're doing it for ourselves. We don't rely on anybody, and I think that's really important.
Yeah.
We don't need anybody to be good. We just need to be good.
Good. Yeah. Great. That's a great note to finish on. Grahame Jackson, thanks for coming along.
No problem.
It's been a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah.